Another B. Okay, well, looks like that's the end of the DA. It's Groundhog Day for bodywork here on Claytonspeed. I feel like I'm taking 3 steps forward. No, that's alright. 1 step forward, 3 steps back at the moment. All will become clear by the end of the video. Alright, so getting the car ready for epoxy, as I have been for the last goodness knows how many videos, 2-3 videos, but finally getting somewhere. I've got a new compressor. Right, meet the new compressor. It's a high-end something, basically petrol with a 420cc engine running a big pump, but it was a little bit louder when I got it. This is actually a B grade item that I got, so I didn't pay full on whack for it. It's come with a few missing bits and pieces, which actually, funnily enough, they're going to send me under warranty, which is great, but it was a bit too loud, so I put an extra exhaust on it, welded it to the original silencer that's in there, and actually sounds a lot quieter, which is really good. But I've got an air filter box new coming for that because that was broke when I had it. So yeah, meet the new compressor. Electric start or pull start. Although the pull start doesn't work because it's all dented up. Must be something to do with it being, I think, damaged in transit, which is a bit of a shame. So I'm waiting for a new one of those. New air filter because it's all cracked on there as well. So this is B grade, but it's doing a good job. Yeah. So I just want to go through how I'm getting, at the moment, the driver's side ready for epoxy. You might remember front wing, so that's all 180'd. I've got to just go over that with a 320. The bottom of that is repaired, so that's all good. I've got to go do the door jambs. Now, the door jambs are really kind of annoying. There's areas kind of in the lower half of this A post where I've had to repair it, so I'm going to epoxy all into there, onto the sill step, up and round. Obviously up here you've got this is actually where the door flip seal was rubbing against all those years and actually rubbed the paint off. So I've flattened, there was a spider on here, I've flattened that out with the strip disc. I've got to flatten that over with a 180, but that's okay, I can do that. This door's all done 180'd on the DA, and that's the thing. So for preparation of whether it's the epoxy, the primer, my process is as follows. DA sander, dry sanding, start with a 180 or strip disc if we're going back to bare metal, 180, 320, and using red Scotch Brite to get into little areas which you can't get into with the DA, or even using the red Scotch Brite as an interface pad into those sort of edges, because we don't want to be burning through. What usually I do would be to make sure that that is all done with the red Scotch after the 320 has been there, so we don't burn through. Same on all these edges. That's the difficulty with using a DA, you can burn through really quickly if you're not too careful. An interface pad to your DA sander, that will act as a buffer with your sanding disc, especially around areas like these swage lines. But obviously what it would cut at a 180 on a DA naturally, with an interface pad it's probably not cutting like a 180, it's probably cutting more like a 320, I would have thought at that stage. I'd probably use the interface pad more on the primer coats rather than the epoxy coats at this stage. I found to be quite good. I can hear a noise. What's that noise? Oh Christ. Okay, something not quite right here. That is not supposed to happen. Okay, well, looks like that's the end of the DA. Right, okay, so this way of prepping, it may not be to everybody's taste, but it's the way I found works, and this can be whether you're using the cellulose paint, whether you're using a 2K paint. Obviously the difference is this paint doesn't have lacquer on it, so when you sand it you'll be seeing blue dust rather than white dust. Yeah, so making sure that the whole panel's uniform look, nicely dulled off on a 180, 320, and then we'll go off it with a red Scotch Brite all around those edges, get it looking lovely and smooth, and then that'll be perfect to clean up, mask off, and get some epoxy fitted. Fitted? Not fitting epoxy. We are painting epoxy. But got quite a bit sanding left to do before we can get to that stage. But I will get there. This will be in primer, hopefully by the end of this weekend. You wonder sometimes where you take these jobs on. Could have just like said, oh, it's original paint, you know, originality. Does that sell? Usually does, but it wouldn't have lasted a lot longer. Weathering, and even if it's just been used, you know, briefly a few times a year to show the paint wouldn't last. It's got to be done. It has to be done. Can't not be done now, Ben. You know, it's got to be done. Get on with it. Freaking hell. Awkward areas. Now this goes for whether you're prepping for primer, epoxy, whatever. This is exactly the same. So 180 pad. I'm just using this to go around the edges and just going around all these hard to get areas, because you won't get this with a DA at all. Just to get it on those edges so that we know that the paint or the primer is going to stick. Again, on this top edge, really important, because that's where the trim sits over the top of, and we want to make sure that's nicely biting whatever it needs to be. I'm not going too mad around these areas, because obviously these are the chrome trims that obviously we're retaining, but because of where they are, I can actually mask those off quite easy. I don't have to take the whole thing out, because it actually is a really horrible job to get that trim back on. If you're a bit worried, I'd put a bit of masking tape on. I probably should put a bit of masking tape. Okay, so put a little bit of masking tape on just at the bottom of that trim piece, same on that side. This side I need to get a little bit closer in, because there's a little bit of rust in there which I need to get off, so I have to get the strip disc in there. Or maybe just try it with an 80 grip first, just to see if I can nib it out by hand. You can see where it's starting to feather in here. You can just actually see paint layers feathering in, and the epoxy will clear all that. And in fact, this was where a spider was, so it's like pitted, but the epoxy will fill all that. You won't even know it was there, so great stuff. A bit pitting where there was a bit of rust bubbling. It's not rotten, it's badly pitted, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some John up on that overnight and get that all out of there. I'm not actually painting the actual backs of the doors. We're going to leave that as original paint, because actually it's really good, so it just cleans up really nicely. And it's kind of nice to have a bit of originality to the car in some areas, I think. It's not because I'm lazy, it's because it doesn't need doing. So I kind of like the idea of keeping those areas original, which, when I open the door, that is all original. There's a bit of wax and rubbish on there, but we can clean all that up. A bit of spiders have been living there. Need to find a piece of trim that goes in here. It doesn't seem to have one. But other than that, actually the door itself is in really good shape. So it's taking a little while. Keep all that the same, because I needed to get the rear bumper off and the lights off and all the rest of it. It's just got to go over now with a bit of red. We'll go over it now with a 320, and then I can red scotch it, and that's ready to go. Just trying to work out where I'm going to mask it, but I'm going to bag mask it, so it's a lot easier than messing around with brown paper. So yeah, hopefully at the end of this weekend, which to you is the end of this video, this driver's side will all be in epoxy. Have I said that before? Looking pretty good, quite pleased with it. Hard work, but it'll pay off. It'll pay off in dividends. Spend your time prepping, your spray job will come out fantastic. In theory. Just going over the foam cleaner over the whole thing, leave that on there. The idea here is we're keeping everything clean. Get into those jams. I have got to sort the rear valance out. Right. Maybe I'll just T-cut it. Right, so that's after the foam. I've wiped the foam off with a microfiber, but you can see how uniform the paint is from where I've sanded it. All the sand is now gone, but we're going that little bit extra on this and making it a bit more special. Hold on. Special. It's got an epoxy coat on it. It's actually going to act as a barrier. It's going to be better for rust prevention. It's going to really lock that old paint off from anything that then goes back over the top of it. Right, all bagged, ready for epoxy on this side. I'm just doing the door jamb onto the lower sill step here. I'm not going to encroach too much on the B post at this moment in time, because to do that, that door needs to come off. But I just want to get enough epoxy on this side so I can sort the bodywork out on the front of the wing, and then I can sort everything else out afterwards. But at this stage we're in a good position, I think now. Wax and grease remove it. Good day today, nice and sunny. Get ready for Monday. Well, that's the first. I'll leave that to flash. The front wing's got good coverage. The jams look good. There's a bee. You need to get rid of the bee. Come on, bee. Out you go. That way. Toxic fumes. Oh, no. The bee has gone. All that on the sill in areas that the factory didn't get to, and here, which is the most important bit where I've got to add filler to it, now that will be ready to take the filler on top of that, so that's really good. Doesn't need any filler around the front on this one. Don't worry, that will be taken off and replaced. We won't keep that. I just sort of forgot about it. What are you going to do? All nice and clean around there. Don't know if you can see little low spots just here and here, which is where I bare metaled it, and I said the epoxy will clear all that. Oh, that'll be alright, the epoxy will fill into that. But the compressor ran out of fuel, so really it needs something to do. But where it was bare metaled, all here, it's feathered in really nicely around the arch. That's come out really well. Sorry, the lighting here at the moment is a bit naff. It's either one thing or another. Right, so what I did was I guide coated all this and started flatting it back. And you can see it's gone very blotchy. I didn't get good coverage. I thought I got good coverage and the gun wasn't atomizing well enough. Looking back on the video, you can see that you're not getting any atomization visible when I'm spraying, and I don't know, maybe the bee distracted me. There's a bee. But anyway, so I'm blocked it all back off again, and I'm going to redo the whole thing front to back to get it absolutely perfect. I'm going to probably put a bit more reducer in the epoxy this time, rather than, probably didn't give it enough again. There's two ways of mixing this epoxy. One is as a 2K epoxy primer, which lays on really, really thick, like I did on the engine bay, which is basically you have to cut that back in areas. I've had to cut that back with an 80 grit, and it's that tough. It's really, really tough. But if you reduce it down even more, you can actually get it nicely flat when you're spraying it, so, and then it just leaves a nice thin surface, if you like, for the high build to go on top of. But obviously in areas where I was saying here they were feathered, that's my mistake. They weren't feathered well enough, and I should have realised that, and I didn't. I was trying to do it for the camera, and I apologise, that was wrong. Didn't get quite as well. These actually, you can see where the epoxy has actually filled in the spiders, and that's really cool, because it now means that once I get the next coat on there, that will be flat. Same around here, you can see how it's feathered out. You can definitely see how it's feathered out now. It's gone into the low spots, and I brought the two levels the same on each of these now, hence why it's gone back to bare metal, because obviously it was a low spot before. So that's now done. So I think what I'm trying to say is, bad workman always blames his tools. Now, I'm not blaming my tools, I'm not blaming the product I'm using. It's more lack of thought when I was doing it. I'm using a new gun, and a new spray gun, and it requires a lot more volume of air than a conventional HVLP. Okay, so it always pays to get a good gauge for your air tools for your spray guns, and I've got a good one on my gun because it came with it. It's a 3M gun, it came with a 3M gauge. But I was using my old gauge, and it's like chalk and cheese. Right, I couldn't leave you with a job half finished, so I've now gone over the whole thing, and I'm much happier now. That looks a lot better. I even got around the other side. That is now ready to do my filler work on the front. But other than that, it's getting there. Comment, hit the bell for notifications, check out the other videos if you haven't already. Feel free, buy a t-shirt, link in the description. Till next time, take care.